Hi guys, I've decided to go over the Mathspace that I made today. So this goes with the Quadratics Lesson 1. It's a review of the 30 question Mathspace. I'm going to go over it all. So if you have a question when you do them, you can come back to this video to look at it. Let's get started. So I just went in there and I printed them all out. And I copied them to this smart board. And I'm going to go over them. So the first one, find the value of the following quadratic expression when x equals 4. So this is the quadratic expression, right? Because it has an exponent of 2 and x equals 4. So all you have to do is instead of x, you're going to put 4. And you can solve it like this. You know, make sure whenever you substitute, you use parentheses. 4 squared is 16. 6 times 16 is 96, so you end up with 96 minus 2, and your final answer would be 94. Let me show you on this one real quick how to use Desmos. I won't show you on the other ones like this, but on this one I will. So it's 6x squared minus 2, and x equals 4. So you go over here and you put 6x squared. I'm going to hit the plus key. Hit this to make it square, and it's minus 2, I think. I'm going to check. Minus 2, yeah, and x equals 4. So you want to make x 4. So in Desmos, you can't put a value in for variables if they're x or y. So I'll have to change this to a. Now I can add a slider, so I'm going to make a equal 4. And my answer right here is 94. So you can't ever use x when you're substituting in Desmos. You got to make it a letter. And then you just click on the letter and change the value. And it gives you your answer right here. It's the same as telling a calculator that it equals 4. You're telling Desmos that a equals 4, and you put in the original problem here. Hopefully that makes sense. That should. So for this one, you're doing the same thing. 3x squared, that's your quadratic, right? The highest exponent is a 2, and you're solving two different problems where x equals 5. So you're going to solve this. That's 5 squared is 25, and that's 75. And then do the same thing where x equals negative 5. So this is where it's important that you use these parentheses when you do it, or when you check it on Desmos. Put in the exact thing. With Desmos, when you do it, you won't get a wrong answer. As long as you put 3x squared and then x equals negative 5. But here you could, so make sure you always put parentheses. This is going to equal 75 also. So there's another one. Same thing. You're putting in 4 for x and you're solving. So now we're getting to a different one. You're solving for x. This is the one where you'd have to distribute, right? Distribute, take what's on outside of parentheses and multiply it to the inside. X squared plus 6x equals 0. This is a quadratic, right? 2 highest exponent of 2. So I'm going to do these, since these are Mathspaces, I'm going to do them all in Desmos. So all you have to do, I didn't even have to multiply this. I just did it to show you guys that this is a quadratic. So I'm going to erase it to show you that you don't even need to do that. All you need to do is put in this x times the quantity of x plus 6 equals 0 in Desmos. So that's what I'm going to do. X times x plus 6. X times x plus 6 equals 0. I don't need to put that in, but I will. I'm going to double check and make sure that's right. Yeah. So remember, when you're solving, you're looking for your root solutions and zeros. They all mean the same thing. Zeros is where it crosses the x-intercept, and it crosses at -6, and it crosses at 0. So for this question, your answer would be 0, comma, -6. Two answers. Quadratics could have two answers. Could have one answer, could have none. We'll do that next lesson. So same thing. You're solving solution. You're finding the solution or the root or the 0 of x squared equals 25. So go back to Desmos. Put in x squared equals 25. And then you're looking to where this quadratic, right? It's a quadratic because it's a curve. Let me zoom out. Oh, it's a curve. It crosses the x-intercept at -5 and +5. So you just go back here. Your answer is separated by a comma, -5 and 5. And since you can't see it, a quadratic always looks like this or this, right? It's a curve. Linear is a line. What we were doing for most of the year, working with lines, whereas a quadratic is a curve. So this goes back to the first problem. We're finding the value of this quadratic when x equals 3. So all you're doing is substitution. Instead of x, we're going to put 3. And then we're solving this. Right? 3 squared is 9. 9 times 4 is 36. -15 times 3 is -45. Plus 9. -9 plus 9, 0. So my answer is 0. I realize I'm going a little fast, but it's a YouTube video. You can go back and listen to me again if you need to. I want to try to get through all of these today before too many of you have started. So this one, solve for m. So it's a quadratic because when you multiply 8m times m, it's going to be 8m squared. But we want to solve, we're looking for a solution. So I'm going to put 8m times m. Usually I edit this part out when I do my videos, so you don't sit there watching me type and look back and forth to make sure I'm typing the right thing. But I'm probably not going to edit this one too much because editing it down is what takes the longest for me to do. All right, so I have this in here. 8m and m plus 9 equals 0. And there's no line. Another tricky thing with Desmos is Desmos won't put that line unless it's an x. So we got to change m to x. And now we see our quadratic. So our answers where it crosses the x-intercept are -9 and 0. So we go back, solve for m, -9, 0. All right, let's do this one. Same thing, x squared minus 144. So I'm going to go into Desmos. I'm going to put in x squared minus 144, and I look to where it crosses. I don't see it anywhere, but I'm going to make my screen, I'm going to go out further. There's the line. So my answers are -12 and +12. So I go back here, the answers are -12, comma, +12. Good stuff. On to number 9. So is this a quadratic expression? Remember, a quadratic is where the highest exponent is 2. What's the highest exponent? 2. So, yes. Is this a quadratic expression? What's the highest exponent? 1, right? The imaginary 1. That's linear, so this is no. So another quadratic where we're solving, we're finding the root solution, or zero. And those three terms mean the same thing. So I'm going to put these binomials in the Desmos. All right, so I have it in there, and I look to where it crosses. It crosses at -3, and it crosses at 10. So my answers are -3, comma, 10. All right, again, a quadratic, when you put it in Desmos, your solutions, your roots, or your zeros are the points at which the quadratic curve crosses the x-intercept. Remember, this is your x-intercept, this is your y-intercept. So you're looking for where this line you put in crosses the x, and you're looking for the x value, right? The x value is -3, and the x value is 10. So those are your two answers, -3 and 10. All right, number 12. Is 5x squared minus 6 a quadratic? Is the highest exponent 2? Yes, then it's a quadratic. So, again, it wants you to factor. Like I told you in the video on how to solve by hand, it wants you to factor, and so you can solve the equation. We don't need to do this for the Mathspace. I can just put this into Desmos, x squared minus 2x. So x squared minus 2x. And look to see where does it cross the x. It crosses at 0 and it crosses at 2. So those are my two answers. 0, comma, 2. So you can see how Desmos makes the points for the x-intercepts. Also makes a point for the lowest point in the quadratic or the highest point. We don't care about this, right? We're solving, so we want the zeros. Where does it cross? It crosses at 0 and it crosses at 2. Those are our answers. The next one, the same way, 2x squared plus 8x equals 0. So 2x squared plus 8x equals 0. Let's double check, make sure that's right. 2x squared plus 8x equals 0. Yes, it's right. I look at the curve. Where does it cross the x? It crosses at -4 and it crosses at 0. So those are my two answers. -4 and 0. I'm probably only going to do one more of these because it's the same thing over and over again, but this is important to remember this. So it's a quadratic, and we're solving it. We want the solution, which is also called the roots or the zeros. So -3k squared equals -12. So -3k squared equals -12. Normally you would have to solve this for 0, right? We would have to move the -12 over. But when you're using Desmos, you don't even have to do that. You just put the problem like it looks into Desmos. I'm not seeing a line. Do we remember why I'm not seeing a line? I hope so. It's because this needs to be an x. The variable has to be an x when you're doing this in Desmos. So I'm going to change the k to an x, and there it is, my line, my quadratic. So my answers are -2 and +2. So I go back over here, -2 and +2. I'm not doing this one. It's like the other ones. I'm not doing this one. It's like the other ones. Put it in Desmos. I'm not doing that 18 or 19 or 20. They're all the same. Put them in Desmos and see where it crosses the x. Is this a quadratic? Is the highest exponent 2? No, it's 3. And 3, when the highest exponent is 3, that's a cubic. So what's the relationship between x and y? What relationship between x and y is represented by the given graph? So remember what I was saying before. When the graph looks like this, or this, like this one does, and this one. When it looks like this or this, that means it's a quadratic. So this one is a quadratic. So this is the same as before. When you're asked to solve for the values of x, you can put it in Desmos. Don't get confused by the way the problem looks. I'm going to do this one really quickly. 9x minus 17. So we're solving it. So we're looking for the zeros, which means which points cross this line. Your answer is this crazy fraction and this. So this one, when you put it in Desmos, it might not work because it wants you to, because that probably won't take that decimal. And this probably won't take that decimal either. So the way to solve this is, since this is already factored, right? Let me go back here and show you. Right, these are already factored. So if you go back to the problem that we did before, where it was something like this. This isn't going to work. Let's change this to 9. You know, you had to do this, and you put a times c, and then this, and then you find that this is 5x and this is 4x, and then you put it in here, and you get your two binomials. Right, this is what, you know, GCF, 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 you get your two binomials, and then you set each binomial to 0, and you solve for x. X equals whatever, and x equals whatever. Question. So this one, it's already have your two binomials. So if you wanted to solve for the two possible values of x in this way, you would take 9x minus 17, this binomial, and set it equal to 0, and then solve for x plus 17 plus 17. 9x equals 17. Divided by 9. X equals 17 divided by 9. That's one of them. And now you would take this binomial, 7x plus 15 equals 0. Set it to equal 0, and then solve for x. Minus 15 minus 15. 7x equals negative 15 divided by 7. X equals negative 15 over 7. So this part's really not that easy, since you don't have to factor. Factoring is the hard part that everybody's confused about. This, setting each binomial to equal to 0 and solve for x, is something that y'all should be able to do no problem whatsoever. These are the answers. So if the decimal that Desmos gives you isn't working, you can do it by hand to get the right answer. All right, 24. Again, what is this relationship where your line looks like this? Yes, that's a quadratic. So you're going to put this one in Desmos and see the x-intercepts. What's the relationship when it's a straight line? That is linear. Remember, even in the word linear, right here, line. Line for linear. All right, we're almost done. So you're solving this one, so you can put it in Desmos and look for the roots. But remember, this is an m, so when you put it in Desmos, you're going to change them to x. Same thing with this one, number 28. Number 9, 29. What relationship between x and y is represented? It's a curve. Actually, this one's a little tricky because it looks like it starts here, which means it's going to be like this. This is an other, right? It looks like it starts here and goes like this. So this is not quadratic. Quadratic only goes like this. It never comes back down. If it comes back down, that's not a quadratic. All right. Number 30. So this diagram shows only 1/2 of the graph of a quadratic function. Complete the table of values for the equation. These are your x values. These are your y values. So we're going to find -4 on the x. So we can't. -4 is not here. -3 is not here. -2 is not here. 0 is here. 0 is here. So we're going to go down and see where this line crosses 0 on the x. It crosses right here, which is -9, right? It's the number between -8 and -10, and that's -9. 2 is right here. So where does it cross? Right here. The number between -6 and -4, which is -5. 3 is right here on the x-axis, which is 0. 4 is right here, the number between 6 and 8, which is 7. So now this one's testing your knowledge of how quadratic works, how quadratic equations, functions work. If this and the lowest point is right on the y-axis, then this half matches this half. In other words, if +2 is -6, right? Well, let's say it's this point. -2 is going to be the same thing, just on the other side. So -2 is going to be -5, right? If 3 is 0, then exactly -3 is also going to be 0. If 4 is 7, then the other side, -4, is also going to be 7. Because it's a quadratic and it's symmetrical. Once you find this lowest point, this side is the same as this side. All right. So determine the x values of the x-intercepts. So again, the x-intercepts are where it crosses 0. So that's going to be 3 and -3. The vertex is going to be this lowest point, which is right here. So that's going to be 0, -3. Actually, honestly, this one doesn't come into play until next lesson. I probably shouldn't have put this problem up here, but that's okay because you have the video. The vertex is the lowest point on a quadratic, or if the quadratic goes this way, it's the highest point on a quadratic. So does the vertex represent a minimum or a maximum? So is this the lowest y value or the highest y value? And we know, since it's going up, since the arrows point up, we know that it's a minimum. This one's positive, but that one's really, you don't need to know. Till next lesson. That whole question, a little confusing. So with the exception of question 30, questions 1 through 29 should be pretty easy. I'm still going to leave 30 in there. But anyway, that's it. I want this to be as short as possible so you guys listen to it, watch it, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.